Yeah, just to let her know she should.
Yeah, I will. Okay.
If not, I can always probably get on my.
Yeah, well, the key is looking at why they're comparing. That's where
Are we ready, Mr. Linebarger? Good evening. I hereby call this regular meeting of the Nacogdoches ISD Board of Trustees to order. Let a record show that a quorum is present and notice of this meeting was legally posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Please remember that items do not have to be taken in the order shown on the agenda, and please join us in turning your cell phones to silent mode. Thank you for joining us tonight, whether you are here in person or watching via YouTube Live. The board will now conduct an executive closed session to discuss the items posted on our agenda pursuant to the following provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Act and is allowed by Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.074, and 551.129. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussion in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes in open session. It is now 5:02 p.m. They come. The board is now reconvening into open session at 6:06 PM. I want to remind everyone that items on the agenda do not have to be taken in the order shown on the agenda. Please join us in turning your cell phones to silent mode. First item on our agenda tonight is a public meeting regarding the proposed tax rate for the 2021-2022 school year. After the presentation, the board will hear or open a public hearing for comments from the audience regarding the proposed tax rate. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Ms. Barber?
I don't
If
think your
you're-
microphone is on.
Yeah, if you're comfortable. All right. Well, I tell you what, I just realized as I flipped a piece of paper over here at my desk that I'm a little out of order.
Okay,
So while they're working on getting the
it
microphone
looks like
working,
it's ready.
I'm going to go back. Yes. So we're going to move back to item 3A while we're waiting for that audio to be adjusted. And that is our invocation. And I'm going to ask Mr. Montoya if you would please lead our invocation tonight.
Let's bow our heads. As we start this school year for 2021, 2022, dealing with the pandemic, of course, it doesn't go away. We ask you that we all work together as a community, as teachers, as principals, that all of us, that we work together to ensure that we give the best possible education for our kids and that they be safe, as well as our teachers, and that we do what's right for the community. We're not always going to agree. We're going to be on different sides, but that's okay. As long as we do what's best for our kids, that is what our goal is. That is what the board's goal is. And I hope that we can all work together and come to a consensus that is best for our kids and our community. In the name of God, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Bill, please stand and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Thank you so much. That will take us back to Ms. Barbara. Do we have audio?
Yes, we do.
Perfect.
So Les wasn't sure he'd have the PowerPoint up right away, so he wanted me to have jokes ready for you. So I did, but I'll only tell you one. Have you heard the one about the fun accountant?
Nope.
Me neither. All right, this is our annual public hearing adoption of the tax rate. So the 2021-22 general fund adopted budget was at 57.9 million and expenditures at the same amount for a zero change in the fund balance. We have an estimated ending fund balance of $31.2 million. So this was built with a projected ADA of 5,399.72 ADA. and a proposed tax rate of 1.0213. This is actually lower than what we initially projected, which is good news for our public. Initially, it was at 1.0547. Our debt service budget revenues were projected to be at 5.3 million and expenditures at 6.9 million, with a decrease in our fund balance of 1.5 million, leaving us an estimated ending fund balance of 3.7 million. That decrease is purposeful. There's no reason to hold a fund balance in debt service, as you can only use it to pay down debt. So the proposed tax rate is at 0.245, which is no change from prior year. And that concludes my presentation. And if
Thank
open
you.
up for public
Thank you,
comment.
Mrs. Barber. I appreciate that. And we're going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would wish to speak to the tax rate for the 2021-2022 year? Okay. Hearing none, we will close that public hearing. The next item on our agenda are celebration and information items from Superintendent Trujillo.
Thank you, President Finch and Board. Just to give you a little bit of information here, it's here on Monday. Students return to NISD as we begin the 21-22 school year. My team and I will be spreading out throughout the district on Monday to visit our campuses and to be on hand for the first day. There's always a lot of excitement built into the first day of school, but admittedly, there's also some concern this year as we continue to fight against the pandemic. We will once again have in place many of the same safeguards from years ago, from this last year. Including the strong recommendation to wear a mask inside our classrooms and campuses. We will continue to enhance cleaning procedures in the district, and we'll request parents to conduct a screening of their student each morning before sending them to school. Our first priority is the safety and well-being of our students and staff. We also want to do everything possible within our power to protect the face-to-face instruction. Everything that happens the last 17 months demonstrates the importance of getting our students, young and old, into the classroom. Also, along these same lines, everyone please be safe and aware when driving around our campuses this next week. Our school zones will be busy with buses and parents dropping off and picking up their students. Nacogdoches PD does an outstanding job of patrolling these areas during drop-off and pickup times. Hint, hint. So more than anything, we want everyone to be safe while our students are returning to school this next week. There's a lot of activities going on this week, and next, as school restarts, UIL athletic activities are already cranking up. The football team is scrimmaging at the Dragon Stadium even as we speak tonight, and next week's season opener with Kilgore. On Monday night, Meet the Dragon will take place at 7 p.m. at the NHS competition gym. Fall sports teams will be recognized along with other sports groups. NHS twirlers, cheerleaders, and drill teams will be on hand, and the Dragon Band will perform for us also. This will be on Monday night. Tomorrow morning, exciting. I get to see this for the very first time. Morning, senior sunrise at the Dragon Stadium for the class of 2022. Our seniors will be gathering at 6 a.m. at the stadium for kolache, donuts, games, and photos. It's a wonderful time and a wonderful tradition that our high school holds each year before the start of school. And I need to say each year, I hadn't seen this the last 2 years that I've been here. So this is gonna be exciting for me to see in the morning with our seniors. So that's the report at this time, President Finch.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. The next item on our agenda is public comment. Those wishing to address the board during public comment have emailed a request to the district or turned in a public comment form to the District Support Center by 4 p.m. today. This revised procedure was included and made part of the meeting notice. If you'd wish to address public comment at a future meeting, please see that public meeting notice and give you the directions on how to do that. We have 7 requests for public comment today. The time limit will be 3 minutes for each person addressing the board, and Secretary Mindy Winslow will keep time for us. And just to remind everyone, the board cannot comment or discuss items that are brought forward in public comment. First person who's registered to speak with us tonight is Dana Cooper. Thank you for being here tonight.
Good evening, Superintendent Trujillo and school board members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. We know children learn best in the classroom with their teachers and friends, but sending them back into a face-to-face environment this year brings with it potential harm never seen before. Given the realities of the moment, parents are forced to make potential life and death choices in simply sending their children to school. As the mother of a child at Regay and another at Mike Moses, I have done all I can in getting my family vaccinated, continued masking, and distancing. But my son is not old enough to receive the vaccine. I have signed him up for every trial I could possibly find in recent months, even as far away as Johns Hopkins University. None of these have materialized. Thus, he is set to return to school on Monday in the darkest days of the pandemic, defenseless against a virus that has killed 624,000 Americans, more than 400 children, not to mention those who are suffering with long COVID. But statistics hardly matter when it's your child that's admitted to the hospital, or your child that's intubated in the ICU, or God forbid, your child lowered into the ground. I do not want another child to miss school because of this virus, or force a teacher to choose between testing for COVID and losing pay, or another nurse to have to put another patient into a body bag. If any of our children needed an ICU bed today, they would have to be flown upwards of 500 miles away. That's the equivalent of you and I driving to Wichita, Kansas. Masks are the most effective and least intrusive step we can take in this moment as we wait for a vaccine for children under 12, which could be ready for emergency use authorization next month. Between the Delta and now Lambda variants, skyrocketing rates of RSV, and a flu season that will begin in 6 weeks, politics has taken priority over the lives and well-being of children, placing them in extreme danger. Optional masking will result in sick children, teachers, and staff, interruptive quarantines, and constant toggling between in-person and online instruction. More avoidable disease, death, and disability will come as we adversely affect the education of young people who are looking to you to step up and protect them. For every child under the age of 12, they have no choice but to be placed in a high-risk situation. But you have a choice. It is our shared responsibility as parents, teachers, district employees, and advocates to protect them to the best of our ability until the youngest of our children can be vaccinated. Masking is a temporary measure against a long-term consequence. For the sake of my child and every child in this district, I beg you to pass a temporary mask mandate, and join the 58 other school districts in our state who have already done so until a vaccine is available to all of our children of school age in Nacogdoches. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cooper. Our second speaker. Thank you, Mrs. Barber. Our second speaker tonight, Chrissy Cross. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. My name is Chrissy Cross. I have 3 children who attend Nacogdoches ISD. First, I want to say thank you to the teachers, principals, janitors, and staff who worked so hard last year to keep my kids safe. I had 4 kids in 3 different NAC ISD schools, and none of them got COVID. None of them. That happened because the teachers, admins, and staff worked so hard to create a safe environment for them. And I will always hold a special place in my heart for all the NAC ISD employees that did that for my kids and every other kid in NAC ISD. One reason my kids didn't get COVID is because everyone wore masks at school. This year, we're facing the same circumstances, same pandemic, and 3 of my kids have gotten a vaccine. My youngest hasn't. She's 10. I know that this is not a simple decision. because Nacogdoches was on board last year with all the COVID precautions. I know that because of Nacogdoches ISD, our community got COVID cases down to 0. We did so good. All of us together, we did that. This year, unfortunately, the governor, he's decided to use some people as political pawns. He has decided that schools cannot mandate masks. Last time I checked, the governor doesn't live in Nacogdoches, and he isn't going to need to get care at the small hospitals in Nacogdoches that serve the county's 65,000 residents. I'm here today to ask on behalf of the community of Nacogdoches that NAC ISD simply continue this year to require that students, teachers, staff, and admins wear masks in the classroom. It worked last year. It'll work again. Nacogdoches is a rural community, and the medical community here cannot handle hundreds of people sick with COVID. I read a news story yesterday that one district in 5 days went from 0 cases to 121 in 5 days. When hospitals are full of COVID patients, other seriously ill patients have to be transported to other hospitals and even out of state. If you've been following the governor's reckless and unnecessary politicizing of masks, vaccines, and the COVID pandemic, you will know that many other districts in Texas have mandated masks, including larger districts, medium-sized districts, smaller districts, and even Paris, Texas, right up the road. I'm asking that Nacogdoches ISD do the same. I know several of you are people of faith, and in Galatians, the Bible says to carry each other's burdens. This is a way we can do that for our community, and you can do that as school board members. We can all work together to take care of our community by carrying this burden together, and each of us doing our part by wearing a mask.
Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Our third speaker tonight is Damon Ruckel. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank y'all so much for letting me speak tonight. My name is Damon Ruckel, and my son Harry is going into the 5th grade at Regay. We are really excited. He's met his teachers earlier because we knew that I was going to be here, and they're teachers that he knows and he loves them all. So we're looking forward to a great year. I think there's one thing that everybody in this room, we can all agree on, hands down, and that is that we want our children in the classroom, at school, learning every day of this upcoming school year. We need them there. We need to close the grade level competency gap that occurred last year because of the large break during the shutdown. We need them in those classrooms. But as we look around the state of Texas at other school districts that have opened without mask mandates, what we can see is that we have now thousands of Texas students and hundreds of Texas teachers already home quarantining and sick, regardless of the fact that most of the school districts haven't even opened yet. It doesn't have to be that way. Well, what we've also seen with that is when the teachers and the students start to get sick, we've seen all across Texas, some schools have had to close down classrooms. Some of them have had to close down grade levels. Some of them had to close down schools, and some of them have to close down entire districts. But it doesn't have to be that way. The federal government allocated billions of dollars to the state of Texas to address COVID mitigation, and they mandated that every school in the country build and implement a COVID mitigation plan that goes along with the guidelines of the CDC. The bedrock of the CDC guidelines is mask mandates in schools. But the CDC isn't the only organization that believes that. The American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the National Institute of Health all agree. The only way we can safely open schools is with a mask mandate. And as to the voluntary mask mandate, I had a friend up in Longview whose kid started school this week. He said in his son's class in elementary school, 4 kids out of 22 voluntarily wore masks. And I think that's what we see with voluntary mask mandates, that people aren't going to go along with them. We do have a problem in that our governor has issued a mask mandate ban. And I never thought that I would stand before a school board or anybody asking them to go against the governor's mandate. But what I've found, talking to my friends in both the state Senate and the state House and lobbyists and all sorts of people that are ancillary to the government operating in Austin, is that this is a purely political move that he had made back in the spring. He's got two opponents next spring, Don Huffines and Alan West, that are challenging him in the Republican primary, and he's going to lose. But he's going to do everything to avoid that possible. And right now, he's using our kids to do that. I'd ask y'all to make a mandatory mask,
Thank you.
implement a
Thank you.
mandatory mask ban.
Thank you, Mr. Ruckel. Our next speaker is Christina, is it Gunther? Okay.
Thank you to the board for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Christina Günther, and my son will be in 7th grade at McMichael Middle School this year. In this time of once again increasing COVID numbers and the more contagious Delta variant, I want to urge the board to instate a mask mandate for schools. With university students returning from all over the state, I can only imagine our numbers will continue to increase. My son is fully vaccinated, but his younger sister, who is 10, cannot yet get a vaccine. There are many other children who also cannot yet get vaccinated, and it is known that those of us who are vaccinated can still get COVID and pass it on to others, even though generally we who are vaccinated will have few to no symptoms. The governor's order banning the implementation of mask mandates in schools is a political move and does not consider the health of our children or at-risk family members to whom they could give the virus. The governor, who is fully vaccinated, recently himself contracted COVID. He will get the best medical care he needs, if he needs it, but not everyone is in the position to receive such care. Telling people that it is a personal choice, wear masks if you want to, don't if you don't want to, produces essentially the same results as having a smoking section at a restaurant. If there is a smoking section, the entire restaurant is a smoking section. Masks are most effective when everyone in a space wears them. They primarily reduce the spread and secondarily reduce the intake. The Delta variant is that much more contagious because it spreads through aerosols, whereas previously the virus seemed to spread mostly through droplets. Children may be less likely to contract the virus, but they are also not the only ones at schools. There are also teachers, administrators, janitors. My two children had no problem with wearing their masks all last year. It is really not the hardship that many want to make it out to be. Until there are vaccines available to all ages and the time has passed for them to be fully vaccinated, I would like to see a mask mandate put in place to protect our children, their families, and other vulnerable people in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here tonight. Our fifth speaker tonight is Catherine Daniel.
Hey, I might be the most rowdy speaker tonight. Hopefully not. Good evening, Superintendent Trujillo and school board members. Thank you for the chance to speak. I'm wearing two hats tonight, and I'll start with the first. I'm an organizer with the Texas American Federation of Teachers. We are the state affiliate of the National Union AFT. I'm proud to work for the union, especially now, as we are spending millions collaborating with school districts nationwide to help find so many so-called lost students due to the horrors of COVID-19. We're doing far more than that, but my clock is ticking. Our nationwide initiative has been and continues to be a huge success where school districts have professional, collaborative relationships with teachers, parents, and caregivers, and all community stakeholders. Nacogdoches could be the perfect model of this, especially with the College of Education here. Please check out our website or reach out to me. You all know me. You get emails from me regularly. And if you'd like to know more, I really would love to hear from some of, if not all of you. I'll say one more thing with my AFT hat on. There is no reason not to mask up. All the experts recommend it, period. You all have an MD on your board. Are you really all of a sudden not going to follow the experts' recommendations? Greg Abbott is not a doctor. He's a politician. We want schools to stay open. We want immunocompromised kids and staff to be safe. We want educators to be able to do their jobs with our kids. We want you to listen to our ER doctor quoted in the local paper. We want you to listen and look at the speakers who are pleading with you. We want you to listen to Houston Medical Center and the DFW area where pediatric ICUs are full. Please. You wouldn't be the only district defying Abbott. According to Paxton, who plans to sue every last one of them, great way to spend our money. There are currently 60 Texas districts doing what's best for students, mandating masks until kids under 12 can get vaxxed and the surge is slow. Please join them and do what you always say. You always say you do what's best for students. Do it. Now, because of these time constraints, I'm going to quickly move to my mother constituent, born in Knack, lover of the Piney Woods, and those who know you or who know me will laugh, my patriot hat. Most of all, my mother hat. It is so depressing that I fear I will lose friendships over this. My organization may even lose members because some teachers here don't want to wear masks and won't even if you beg of them, not unless the governor mandates it. Yet I saw many of those same teachers during the governor's actual statewide mask mandate ignoring his executive orders, including some of you, all because of your claims of freedom. What about the freedom for our kids to go to school as safely as possible under the guidelines of the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics?
Thank you,
Please
Mrs. Daniel.
consider the science, not political.
Our next speaker tonight, and let me apologize in advance. I'm going to do the best I can. Zakaya Legrand Rodriguez. Did I do that? Thank you for giving me a little bit of leeway there.
Good evening, everyone. I am Zakia or Zakaya Legrand Rodriguez, and thank you so much for giving me this time this evening to address you. I am here this evening to represent my family, especially my children. My 3 children are here, and they are students here at Knack ISD. I'm also, I guess, sort of representing my husband. My husband works here at Knack ISD. My husband is Dr. Rodriguez. And I'm just so concerned, about our community. I just see so much infighting. The reason we moved here was because it was such a warm and wonderful place. And I just see the infighting just shocks me. But first, I just want to say just ditto to all the people who spoke before me. I won't go over all of those statistics again, but they said everything that I was thinking. So I'm going to go with something else. 2 of my children will be at TJR and 1 at NETI. They are soon to be 9 and 10 years old, have not been vaccinated. I want to protect them. They have 80-year-old and 85-year-old grandparents. They have an 85-year-old great aunt who's getting ready to start cancer treatments. I want my family to be safe. And I really appreciated what Mr. Montoya said about working together as a community. Together, we have to work together for our kids and for the entire community. And truly, we don't all have to agree, but we have to find a way to get along. I know a lot about that. I have 5 sisters, 5, and 6 girls. We do not agree on anything except one thing, that our brother Robert is our favorite sibling. That's what we agree on. So I understand about having to work things out. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to go through statistics, but I'm a firm believer is that instead of just complaining, you should always have, 3 options, 3 possibilities of fixing a situation. So my first one would be to make masks part of our district dress code for faculty, staff, students, everybody, cockroaches, everybody wears a mask. It's part of our dress code. Nothing that Governor Abbott can do about that. Number 2, to offer an online option for pre-K through 6 years old. And number 3 is just to simply ignore the governor and create our own mask mandate. Thank you again for allowing me the time. I appreciate it. And everyone have a great evening and let's stay peaceful.
Thank you. Our final speaker tonight is Dexter White.
You might, can we do need you on the mic because it's being broadcast. Yeah, it'll come off. I know I can hear you though.
I'm here to speak because we have 3 kids that's in school. We have 2 going to Kaufman and 1 at the high school. And I'm real concerned about it because on last year's school, one of our kids contracted coronavirus and brought it home. And as my wife being the only parent working, she don't need to be sick. And I'm speaking as a kid. I don't believe in the virtue. Our kids need to be in the school, learning from people that have degrees that's there to teach them. Because if not, our kids are going to get behind. There's some things that we have in our community, young parents that's have kids that has no education. So if their parents can't teach the kids, how they going to learn? So that's why I'm saying masks need to be mandated. And therefore, there was an old saying say, kids supposed to bury parents. Parents not supposed to bury their kids. And I don't want to see no one burying their kids. And I don't want to see our kids, I'm pretty sure everybody agree that they don't want to see their kids sick in the hospital or dying. So please, regardless of what the governor say, please have the kids to wear masks. Please agree with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. That will take us to our consent agenda tonight. All items listed will be acted on with one motion. If there's a board member who wishes to discuss an item on the consent agenda separately, please indicate the agenda letter and it will be. Wait, oh,
I will not vote.
okay, so, okay. Let's, all right, let me get there for it, okay. So all those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye. And any abstentions?
Abstain.
Did you get that, Holly? That's great. All right. That's going to take us to our reports section of the agenda. 9A is our demographer report. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Board President, Mrs. Finch, members of the board, Dr. Trujillo. And May, I would like to turn to Mr. Smith, who is with Conduct Education. Mr. Smith came to the Dallas area this evening. Board approved earlier this year that our demographics district and Templeton is now on Conduct Education. So Mr. Smith is here to present. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, President Fitch, members of the board, Dr. Hill, good to see you again.
Good to see you again, sir.
Tonight, I'll be going through the demographic study that we put together over the summer. I appreciate the opportunity to come out here and speak with you guys. On a personal note, my son graduated from the local university here, CNF Austin, in 2020.
Axe some jacks.
So it's good to come back and spend some time here in Nacogdoches. So tonight we'll take a look at a little bit of history. We'll look at some of the economic factors that are happening and obviously what COVID has done with some enrollment. We'll look at a little bit of housing information, and then we'll look at some 10-year enrollment forecast. So this table here is a representation of your history over the last 5 years. This is by grade level. So each one of those grade levels you can see there has the number of students at each grade level across the board from 2016-17 through this last year. The boxes that are highlighted in yellow are your largest class of that particular year. The green ones are your second largest class of that particular year. In the table below, you can see where those are the cohort change. And so what that means is basically how many first graders became second graders, how many third graders became fourth graders. Is that me? Okay. So if there's a positive number, if there's a 1 or above, then that means that there was growth in that particular grade as that class moved from second grade into third grade or 8th grade into 9th grade. If it's below 1, that means that you had a loss at that particular level. Now, obviously, COVID had a profound effect on all the districts across the state of Texas, and we'll look at a little bit more at that. But you can see where you had a little bit more drop at the lower levels, the lower grade levels than you would have in previous years. And then in some of the higher grades, you actually had a little bit of a higher level where you didn't have quite as much attrition that sometimes happens in the high school level, because those high school students are a little better at distance learning. It's a little easier for them. They're familiar with all those things. And so we saw a little bit of that, and that was normal, like I said, across the state of Texas, as we looked at all of the different locations that we work with. That was a trend that we saw, through all of those particular cases. But we did see a little bit of a drop in students this last year for the district, about 4.4%. And that was, again, all COVID related, and it did have a profound effect on those early ed through those younger classes in the elementary was where we saw the most of it.
Can I ask it, and I may have missed this on that chart, the EE, what does that represent?
That's early education. So
Okay.
that's your before preschool.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so a little bit about the economy. Obviously, after COVID, we saw a dramatic change where, actually here in Nacogdoches, we saw a drop in unemployment comparing, I believe this is through May of 2021. And so last year, of course, in May, it was much, much higher. So we did see a drop in unemployment over last year and an increase in the number of jobs in the area, about a 10.2% increase in jobs in the area after the initial phase of COVID. But we did see a drop in the number of house sales down to 564. And now one of the things I want to explain about that drop is what happened during COVID is that people that are selling existing homes, that market almost dried up completely because people didn't want strangers in their homes. They didn't want to go looking for a house into somebody else's home. And so because of COVID, that existing home market really dried up dramatically. And in Nacogdoches right now, you don't have a tremendous amount of new housing coming in. And so, of course, that's going to have a much more profound effect on you guys than an area that has, a booming housing market as far as new houses go. So looking, and this is again, a look at the economic conditions. You can see the spike there back in May as far as unemployment went. And then you can kind of see the comparison of where we were last year in the height of COVID and where we were this year in May when we were much, and obviously things are starting to change again. And so these numbers are likely to bounce around some more. We're likely to see, some more unemployment coming down the road if this new phase of COVID continues on its current path. So look at overall enrollment in the state of Texas. You can see on the table or the map on the left is last year's heat map of growth in the state of Texas. You can see it's mostly green. There are a few areas of red, but very few. And then in those urban areas, especially, the DFW market, the Houston market, Austin, San Antonio, we saw a tremendous amount of growth in those markets up through 2019, 2020. And then when you go into the 2021 school year or the 2020-2021 school year, it's hard to, don't want to get you confused with this year. But you can see those areas of red where those districts actually lost 1,000 students or more in that time period. Now we did have a couple of winners that actually grew more than 1,000 kids. And believe it or not, a couple of those are because of their virtual programs. So Hallsville and ISD and Huntsville ISD both grew more than 1,000 kids because they had well-established virtual programs already. And so when the big change came about, a lot of parents went to those areas trusting that those districts already kind of knew what they were doing. Where almost all the other districts in the state were scrambling around trying to figure out how do we even make this work. And so that's one of the things that we saw in those two districts in particular. So when we look specifically at, Region 7 and where you guys are located, we have, you have one area of growth over the last 5 years. This is a 5-year heat map. You'll have to forgive me, I can't quite see those numbers up there. But in the I just noticed when I came in and opened my laptop, my screen wasn't working. So I'm having to look across at the screen here. So when you look at Nacogdoches in particular, you did lose 4.4% this last year. Over the last 5 years, you can see there's been a decline of about 8% in that time period. And so this map represents the growth of the region in the last 5 years. And so you can see there's not a whole lot of growth in particular throughout the entire region. So what is the housing, how has this all affected the housing market? Well, so the blue lines that you see in this bar graph are your existing home sales. And again, I mentioned before that home sales were dramatically down this last year, specifically due to COVID. When you look at the very bottom of that bar, those are the new houses. So we get this information directly from the county. And so not every new home is recorded as a new home because it has to do with how the transaction happens. And so whether it's labeled as a new home or if it's a purchase from a broker to a builder or a developer to a builder. And so when you look at this particular, you can see there's only been, 3 or 4 houses a year, new houses coming into Nacogdoches. And so by far, the area where, you guys have seen the most housing activity has been at the existing home market, which I mentioned earlier, has really dramatically dried up because of COVID. So when you look at year-to-date sales for just comparing May to May, some of those sales are up. The average home price is up. And the median home price is up. Now, when this particular shows that 27% up, that's May versus May of this year and last year. So that was the height of COVID last year, and we were back into kind of a lull actually of COVID by the end of May. And so that's why this number is different than the overall year-to-year comparison. But number of listings is down 37%. So number of listings inside the district boundary. is down more than a third compared to where it was last year. And so existing home inventory down 45%. So that's the available homes to move into right now in the market is down almost half compared to where it was in the previous year.
I have a question.
Yes.
On the average home price,
Yes.
that 218, is that average home price for Nacogdoches?
Yes. For Nacogdoches ISD.
ISD.
Okay, that includes the whole district, not just Nacogdoches city limits. So this is specifically run, through the lens of the district boundary. So I did put together a map, an overview map that's showing you where the active neighborhoods are that do have some home building going on. Like I mentioned before, it is a very minimal. So these particular neighborhoods have had a new home within the last 2 to 3 years. You can see, overall, we just haven't seen that much new home activity inside Nacogdoches ISD. But you can see there are a few up there where we've seen some home building in that particular time period. We do have, so there, you have about 5 or 6 active subdivisions right now that are building homes here and there. Kind of fill in really is what you're seeing.
I have a quick question. I may back you up a couple of slides. I'm still stewing on that average home price.
Okay.
Is that calculated based on sales? That's not really the average value. Like,
Correct.
that's just average of what
That's
has
correct.
sold.
That's correct.
Correct? Okay.
That's absolutely correct. So yeah, this is not average value for the district. This is only average sale price of
Okay.
homes that have been sold during the last 12 months, ending in May. So then we looked again, so we'll go ahead and move forward. So you've got Spring Creek Estates, which has about 95 total lots. They're building, maybe 1 or 2 houses a year. I'm going to take this mic out. I'm going to get a little closer so I can kind of go through this a little bit better. And so you've got, these Spring Creek Estates is ½ acre to 1 acre lots. So those are all going to be custom homes. They're not going to build through those super fast. They do have an additional 72 acres of raw land that they will develop at some point. But at this point, they don't really have, a need for that at the moment. Your current student yield out of there is only 0.21. So that's 21 students for every 100 homes out there. That's the best way to look at that student yield. You've got Broadmoor. Broadmoor has 57 total lots. 36 of those are occupied. So you do have 21 lots available to build on right now. And currently you only have 1 student in there out of those 36 homes. Now, all of our student information is based on the student file we got from the district, and we geocode those students specifically to these lots. So you got Summer Hill, which has 84 total lots. 68 of those are occupied. So you do have 16 lots there available. They closed 1 home in the last 12 months. And right now they have 3 current students in that particular subdivision. You've got Regat, 50 total lots that Regat Reserve, 50 total lots there. 13 of those are occupied. You do have 37 vacant developed lots. So I've mentioned that term a couple of times. A vacant developed lot is a lot that's ready to build on today. So it's got streets and utilities and everything's ready to go. They could start putting a house down tomorrow. And so you do have 37 vacant developed lots there. No current students in there out of the 13 homes occupied. Ashbury Court, 71 total lots with only 3 lots remaining there. Right now, no students out of there as well. Park Place, 71 total lots with about 24 of those occupied, 47 vacant developed lots remaining. Again, no current students in those as well. So in your active subdivision, you're getting very little student yield out of these new homes. We also look at your multifamily and your multifamily. Obviously the majority of your multifamily is for the students at Stephen F. Austin. So you're not going to get a lot of student yield out of that either. Your overall student yield out of the multifamily units, and that's all the dark, let's see, no, that's all the dark blue boxes throughout there. And you can see most of those are below 0.25. In fact, your overall multifamily yield is 0.08. So only 8 students for every 100 units of multifamily. And again, that's a big influence from student housing that's included in, in all your multifamily stuff. So that's not, I'm not surprised by that low yield in a college town. So we also look at manufactured homes. Manufactured homes tend to have a much higher yield than apartments do. And so when we look at there, you currently have about 279 students in 354 manufactured homes. And so that's a much higher yield of about 0.79, 0.788. So again, 79 students for every 100 of your manufactured homes inside the district. So we also look at where the students are located. And so, your district is very similar to one of the other districts I work with, where you have a lot of your schools are relatively close to one another. And so your zones tend to look like a dartboard or a pinwheel because they're all, going outward from the center of town. And so that's a very much what we're seeing here in Nacogdoches ISD. Your overall single family yield is about 0.51. And we already talked about the apartment and manufacturing yield, but about 2% of your students, are living outside the district, likely employee kids. And so then you've got about 61% that live inside Nacogdoches city limits. We also look at the TEA transfer report because we want to make sure, we want to see if that's had a profound effect on your overall enrollment over the last several years. And in your case, it hasn't really had a huge effect. It has kind of bounced around some, but your transfers out has steadily increased over the last 5 years. So back in 2015, you were at 945 students that were transferring out of the district, and now you're this last year you're at 1,037. So it's not it's a 100 kids, 90 kids increase over that 5-year period. Not a huge increase, but your transfers in has slowed down a little bit over that same time period. So we're really talking about 100 kids swing in 5 years. Not a huge impact on your overall enrollment trends for the district. We do look at the birth rates to just see if there's a strong correlation for us to kind of look and use those numbers for your kindergarten coming up. And so you had a decent correlation. You have a decent correlation for your high, for your kindergarten to number of births. And so you're really kind of trending right at that, point somewhere between 0.85 and 0.95. And so we've kind of put you in that range over the next 5 years or the next 4 years of kindergartners. And so that brings us to our 10-year forecast. And so what we're expecting for the district is you dropped 273 kids last year. We're expecting to have a bounce back time. Now, COVID and everything that's going to have an effect on this. This was all done before we kind of really saw this trend kicking up. But I am still expecting with you opening, in person, full in person, that you're going to see that increase of, over 200 kids compared to where you were last year. And so that's we're seeing that parents want their kids in school again. And so we're very hopeful that that's a trend that we're going to see across the state. But after that, we're kind of expecting you to bounce around kind of 6,200 kids is where we're looking at over the next 10 years. And so until we see some new housing come in, like a new subdivision or something that's going to drive that, migration into the city, we're expecting you to kind of just bounce around a little bit around that 6,200 number back and forth a little bit. And that'll all have to do with class sizes as they come through. Bigger classes leaves a hole, smaller classes, we'll bring in a bigger number the following year. All right. One of the reasons we think you're going to continue to grow from 6,100 this year up to 6,200, you're still bringing in more kindergartners than you are graduating seniors. And so that's going to keep you from actually going into a decline. When you look at it by campus, you've got the BQJ there at 690. We're expecting them to be at 750 when the doors open. At Carpenter, go from 364 up to 393. At Fredonia, going from 337 to almost 380. We're expected a little bit of a drop at Marshall. Now, I know obviously there's lots of changes coming. This is as if things stayed as they are right now. Okay, so I want to make sure that that's clear as well. You've got Reggae with 507 hitting 515 this next year. You've got Rusk at 537 hitting 554 and getting up into that 580s as we move farther out. At the middle school, where I think you're going to see the most change obviously this year. So I'll just focus on those totals. You're looking at hitting 1408, hitting 1449 this next year. Then you've got a couple of those smaller classes coming in. And so you're going to see that bounce down a little bit, but getting back up to that 1380 out there in the last several years. At the high school, you're at 1735. Last year, we're expecting you to be basically at 1772. You've got a couple of larger classes coming from the middle school into the high school. So you're going to see some growth over the next couple of years. In over 1,800 students in 22, and then continuing with some growth before some of those smaller classes that we're talking about coming out of the elementaries start hitting that high school about 5 years out. And so then you'll see a little bit of that, like I've mentioned before, that bouncing around of that enrollment. But overall, again, expecting you to hit that 6,200 and kind of bounce around that number for the last several years. So this is what, you had a significant drop in students due to COVID-19 this last year. We're expecting that to bounce back. You do have 150 lots right now available for new homes to be built on. And so that, any of those really start to pick up or be active, that's going to probably likely increase the number of students in the district. We do know, we expect Reggae. I know I'm butchering that, right? Reggae, okay. We're expecting that to see the most growth over the next several years, as it is right now. And then we are expecting you guys, again, at that 6,200 and kind of be around that mark over the next several years. All right, so that was pretty fast. A little bit of fire hose information. Any questions?
I need a lot of education in this area, but when we're looking at students coming in and going out, is there any way you track them, or have you any experience of our CTE program is enlarging our footprint? And it seems like with all these smaller schools, they don't have the CTE, and that's going to be a real push in the future of education. So is that going to figure in? Are you going to look at that, or do you have any experience of that, of projecting what might occur when you look at who's out in the county and might be coming just for CTE purposes? Do you have any idea about that?
So I know it's had a positive effect on districts that we've worked with in the past, as far as helping to bring students in. Also, with the number of students that you're already, that are already transferring out, helping to bring those students back as well. But because it's a voluntary program, it's very hard to predict what the total effect of that is going to be, it's going to look like. But I do know that it has, in most areas, it does have a pretty positive effect from the very beginning, because it does allow some of those kids to start working on a trade, and which is, a critical part of our economy moving forward.
Okay, so when we're looking at our demographics and they're not even coming from within our district, how does that affect our demographics?
So as far as when you...
Well, if they're coming from outside of the NISD, they're coming from the small other districts. So how does that affect our demographic drawing or redistricting?
So because they're all going to, your CTE program is all going to be high school level. And so it's really not going to redraw any district.
Okay.
And really, when you talk about redrawing districts, that's very, very rare for district boundaries to be redrawn. That's
No, I'm just talking about how will that affect our demographics? So basically you're saying it's only going to affect the demographics at the high school.
That's correct.
Okay, well, that's true.
Right.
Trent, have you noticed in your report, pre-K obviously is down here. Can you kind of speak to that? Because I'm sure you've seen the trend across the board, specifically in pre-K, because we have a big jump when you look at the number of pre-K numbers are there. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. And so, it's pre-K for us. We don't normally predict pre-K because it is you have to qualify, all of those things. But overall, I'm trying to remember the number. I'm not going to quote it because I'll get it wrong, but a huge amount of the kids that we were missing from last year. So as a state, we lost 122,000 kids that we had the previous year didn't show up, right? So, and really, if you count for the growth of the state, we really lost about 180,000 kids overall. And so, but the majority of those kids were pre-K and kindergartner. It was close to half were from those two areas. And so, depending on how parents start to feel about the Delta variant and all of those safety factors, we're before all of this has kind of come up, right? Just recently, we were predicting a huge increase in pre-K coming into 2021. And so that, I would absolutely expect, that trend to happen as long as, those parents are feeling safe again about bringing their kids to school. They definitely want to bring their kids to school. So, did I answer your question, Dr.?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yes. I just wanted to make sure that we understand that that is an anomaly that was just not at Nacogdoches. This is an anomaly that was across the state, across the country.
Yeah. Now, I'm trying to remember that, but I had that number and it's not coming to my brain, but it's a significantly high number that are pre-K and kindergarten, because those are, technically not required by the state. So, people can opt out of those and not feel like they got in trouble or, didn't have to homeschool or whatever. But we are, again, hopefully we'll see this, COVID start to take we're hoping for what's happening in England where it's really dropping.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll have to wait and see.
I want to thank you for a very concise and understandable presentation, not only for us as the board, but for our stakeholders here and those that are online with us. And this is recorded so everybody can, this is our future, and thank you for helping us build it.
Sure. My pleasure.
Any questions?
President Finch, one statement to make sure that we're aware so that the community and the folks will know. Today, this is what, August the 19th, right? I just want to make sure this is going to be a year-long process. We have construction that's occurring. We have lines that are going to be coming up. And I wanted to make sure that the public understands this is going to be a regular conversation. Trent and I have spoken. He's visiting with Michael. We're getting all the process together. This will not be the only time you hear. This is the foundation of where we begin. I appreciate Trent and the baseline he's given us. This is where the launch is and the catapult begins. The difficult work is before us because we have commitments that we did with the bond with regards to Carpenter. Trent's aware about some of those commitments that we have, that if you are a parent that lives out there in the Carpenter area and we're doing the attendance zone, we know the commitment to our families, let them know that they will remain with the Carpenter School. Now that becomes work for Trent and his staff as we're working along with this. But I wanted to make sure that the community understands that we're not taking the attendance boundaries lightly. We are going to be having multiple opportunities so that the community can see and hear what that looks like. We're also evaluating programming. When Dr. Groman mentions some of our CTE, we're looking at programming and what would happen if we move this program to this particular campus, and also opening up a new pre-K center. With that, the opportunities for tuition, non-tuition based pre-K. We're looking at everything that we can provide so that we can look at the numbers and the services that we provide for our families that are out there. It's fully transparent. I want to make sure that when you see this and you're able to come in to listen to Trent when he's doing the presentations, go back and see the recordings that we have. And you'll see as we're getting deeper and deeper into this, this is what I love about their organization, and I've worked with them in the past, is they start very, very broad and then they get very granular as they get to the specific. And they do some magical things with their numbers by taking a street or taking a block or taking a neighborhood and being able to move them to fit the dynamics. We're working closely with Dr. Salceda with the bilingual program. We're working closely with Dr. Young with special education. We're working closely with Stacy with transportation. We want to streamline this and let the community know that we're going to be very responsible to the resources that we provide, the services that we provide for our kids, and be very cognizant of the needs of our parents, of the services that we have. That's how we're going to get our families back that we've lost, is paying attention to the details that we need to have in order for our parents to know that they have a voice, our teachers to know they have a voice, and our campus principals that are out here as well as we're talking programming. So I do thank you, Trent, for the work that you're doing. And he's diving in there, crunching the numbers for us. And I'm proud to have them working with us through this process. So just wanted to share that with you.
I may have one last question for you. You threw a lot of information. I'm probably going to be processing this for days.
And that's fine.
But I'm kind of interpreting, it's showing me, or one of the takeaways I think I have here is how important those housing starts are to this district. If we've got growth in this district, it's going to come through housing starts. Is that a correct?
So overall, I would say you have two areas where growth can happen. One is through housing starts. That's an absolute, because what happens with existing houses is it's kind of a swap out, right?
Right, you're just flipping.
You're flipping. So you're losing a family, but you're gaining one. And so a new house represents a new opportunity for a student to move into your district. The other one is, of course, with your transfers, transfers between districts. And so the CTE program, the other programs that Dr. Trujillo mentioned, those are also opportunities for you to grow. Right now, you have a deficit there. And so there's a real opportunity to grow from that perspective as well. So those are the two areas where I see the most opportunity for growth.
All right. Thank you. I really appreciate you joining us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
It's good to be back in NAC.
Go get you some CC's. He was talking about that, that's why.
Okay. Yeah. All right, that's going to take us to our next report, student STAR data and student outcome goals. Dr. Hill.
Good afternoon or evening, excuse me. It's even corrected on here and I can't even read that. So good evening, President Fitch, board members, and Superintendent Trujillo. Thank you very much for the opportunity to visit with you about our STAR scores from the 2020 or the 21 school year, as well as look at some of our longitudinal data. I do want to begin while Mr. Linebarger is getting it set up. I do want to thank publicly our principals and our teachers for all of their hard work during this unprecedented year. We did put some extra data in here of things just to consider as far as variables. There wasn't a day that went by that principals weren't having to redo their master schedules on a daily basis because of quarantined kids and or quarantined staff, and or sometimes teaching classes of their own because we didn't have some staff members in the classroom. And so all of those things we have to be very cognizant of, because there was not only interrupted schooling because of COVID-19 in the spring of 2019, we also had continued interrupted learning on behalf of students and staff missing school during this last school year. So I publicly want to say thank you so very much for our principals and all of their hard work, because it was very taxing and they deserve huge kudos. So.
Absolutely.
So thank you again. So as you'll see in this evening's presentation, let me get my coordination together. All right, so just some variables. You've heard me ramble just a tad bit. of some things that we've looked at. And so the next couple of slides will talk to us or let us look at some student absences as well as teacher absences. And board, excuse me, I apologize. You should have a printed version of this as well as in your board book on page 11 if you're looking at the PDF version. Because I know sometimes these will get quite busy and there's a lot of information. And if your eyes are like mine, they get pretty tired this time of the day. So if we look at those last two bullet points, teachers were asked to plan because we had several students that began in remote and then they pivoted because they might have been unsuccessful to on-campus learning in January, on January 25th. And then we didn't have, even some of our devices until I think it was November, December. All right, so on this particular piece, we're looking at just attendance rates. So again, it's super busy, but I'll let you look at just some of the comparisons between fall 2018, fall 2019, fall 2020. I think for me, the area of was when we look at fall of 2019 attendance data, you see that even though we didn't know what COVID was in fall of 2019, we're beginning to see something is amiss. As we continue on, this is a more just by campus. This is looking at staff attendance. So what happens is our teachers go in as well as all staff, to report an absence and they report personal illness. And then last year we were tracking specifically the COVID related cases. So again, to my earlier point of fall 2019, we're beginning to see that staff were beginning to put in for absences even back in fall of 2019. But then if you fast forward to spring of 2021, you see how the campuses were impacted. And some of those numbers for the audience, and I apologize, it's super tiny. But for example, spring 2021 job count for BQJ was 499. Carpenter was 530. Fredonia was 342. Reggae was 369. On this particular slide, you're going to see the same data, but for the two middle schools, NHS and Malcolm Rector. Again, NHS was hit the hardest, if you will. They're, of course, one of our largest campus at 964 teacher absences for the spring of 21. So again, just a variable that goes into the interrupted student learning. So let's get into some of our data specifically. So tonight we're going to talk to you about our end of the year reading diagnostics, which are Circle, TextKey, and M-Class. We're going to look at our STAR results. We're also going to look at STAR EOC results. And then lastly, we're going to look at our student outcome goals, which were adopted, I believe, in January. Couple of things to note. While we have given Circle for a couple of years, you've got some longitudinal data. I will point out that during this past year, the commissioner he always releases these reading assessments. And so we moved to TextKey, away from TPRI to TextKey. And we also moved away from TPRI to M-Class for grades 1 and 2. You're going to see a little change when we come back to you this time next year from TextKey, because we're moving away from TextKey because we want to better align kindergarten with first and second. So we'll have M-Class next year for grades kindergarten, first and second. This is just a comparison and just giving you an idea of the skills that are assessed on both of these assessments. This particular slide is looking at the end of the year data for pre-kindergarten students on Circle. This is comparing the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year. Of course, as you see in all 5 areas that were addressed, we are trending upwards from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So kudos to everyone who had pre-kindergarten on their campuses, because this is exactly what we want to see is the upward trend.
And in a difficult year with a lot of virtual.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for
That's
pointing that out.
impressive.
This is a 4-year comparison because we have been giving circle in pre-K since 2017. So you'll see we have gains in students meeting the benchmark in every skill area comparing 2017 to 18 to 19. However, there was a decrease in all areas for the 2021 end of the year.
Tell you what, I appreciate having this comparison data, and it shows you very, very clearly the impact that COVID had on our kids, because that upward trend. And I sure don't want our teachers to get discouraged.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So
Because I also see that upward trend of where we were headed, and I know we'll get there.
we will,
Yeah.
we will. Yes, ma'am. We just have to stay the course and stay very positive. This particular data is just what it is end of the year, of course. You'll see that we've got some areas that were not assessed. That's why you don't have necessarily the 3 barcodes or the bar graphs, if you will. We did see a decrease in letter sounds, spelling, vocabulary, and blending. This goes to our point of bringing in all of our Fontana Panel instructional materials, is that this data is very specific to the areas that we need to address this next year. It also helps us with knowing specifically the very precise and purposeful interventions and skills that we need to help the students with this next year during our accelerated learning opportunities that are built into all of our master schedules. Now we're going to switch over to M-Class in first grade. So again, this is looking at beginning, middle, and end of the year. Remember, this was the first year that we administered M-Class in the first grade. And again, this is exactly what we like to see, is the red on the left low and then the green on the right high. While again, I'm sure if you ask some of our campus principals, the green is probably not where they wanted them to be, but we do have to take into consideration where we are.
It represents a lot of hard work by a lot of hardworking
It's
teachers.
a lot of hard work, absolutely. I do not ever want to diminish that. This particular slide is M-Class for second grade. Again, in a couple of areas, you've got some decline.
As well.
You may have it right there in front of you. That was fascinating. What the reading accuracy, how is that tested? So the fluency was timed in a 1 minute. word recognition type thing, but how's?
You would ask me the one question that's not on my cheat sheet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So if you- I'm sorry. I
I'm
have,
curious.
I have everything but that one.
No, I
Um,
can, I was curious if that was a timed thing as well, since the timing came in on the other one, but,
No, we have.
Madam President, I'm going to let
Oh,
Dr.
okay.
Corley, she's got a response.
So part of the reading assessment includes guided reading, and that's where we work with our students in small groups.
Right.
And our teacher is actually charting mispronunciation or repetition or omission of words. And so they're able to make a calculation to determine how well the student did on that one reading,
Yeah.
and then also to really narrow down on which skills we need to target. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So it's typically a cold read, so it'd be a book that they've not necessarily seen before. So thank you for that.
thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to switch over to STAR. The first set of slides are NISD, so everything combined. Now, these are super busy. Glad you have the large version at your page, but we felt it important, to your point, President Fitch, about the upward trend in some of these. So while it is so busy, you are comparing ourselves to the state.
Dr. Hill, before you get started, can you
Sure.
make sure that you cover the 2020, when you look at your legend? We do not have it there because we want to make sure the board knows the state did not release that. We have the 1921 as we're going through the legend.
I'm so sorry. I heard like every other word.
Well, sorry, the mask is here. I just want to make sure the board, as they look at the legend, we have 17, 18, 19, and then it jumps to 21. And it's the rationale is we don't have data for the 20, the state did not release that information.
Right, because we were out of school and we did not take STAR that particular year. Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. So when you're looking at this, we do see growth in third grade reading from 2017 to 2018. So we've got 2 years of growth. We also see growth in fourth grade and fifth grade reading from 2017 to 2019. That's exactly where we were headed. And then COVID occurred. The other thing that I want to point out is while we're looking and comparing 17 to 18 to 19 to 21, we're looking at different groups of students, right? But I think it's also important to note that you can also look at these as longitudinal cohorts of groups. So you'll hear me speak to both of those when we're going through these. So for example, if we're looking at cohort to cohort of third graders in 2017 who were fourth graders in 2018, you see that they increased from 58 to 63%. If you do the same comparison from fourth to fifth grade, they began at 63 and they grew to 76. It's very good.
I love this chart. I just can't even begin to tell you because now I can see the kids.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is really helpful. We did debate on put it in, not put it in, not sure, it's busy, so.
Once I do it.
Well, thank you. Thank you to Ms. Grady for putting this wonderful presentation together and the many amendments we asked her to continue to do, even like 10 minutes before the meeting today. So thank you for that. The next slide represents the NISD longitudinal 6th through 8th grade reading STAR results. Again, we see sixth grade, an increase from 2017 to 18. And then 7th grade reading, again, on that upwards trajectory from 2017 to 2019. And then we see growth in 8th grade reading from 2017 to 2018. Again, when we look at our cohort to cohort, looking at our 6th graders in 2017 that were 7th graders in 2018. Oh, I'm sorry. See, I get so busy talking that, so you want to do it? Okay. All right. They grew from 50 to 63%. Our 7th graders in 2017 that were 8th graders in 2018 grew from 57 to 80%. And then our 7th graders in 2018 that were 8th graders in 2019 grew 10 percentage points from 63 to 73. This next particular slide is for grades 3 through 5 math for NISD. So there's a slight growth in math. And again, remember, our data is closely mimics what we saw at the state level where math is an area of concern. Specifically for us, it's fourth grade math. So when we're looking at this, you just see a slight growth from 2017 to 2018. And then you do note some decreases that are observed in the 2019 school year as well as 2021. But again, if we're keeping consistent and focusing on our cohorts, our third to fourth graders made a 6% growth. Our fourth to fifth made 14 percentage points of growth. And then our fourth to fifth made 27 percentage points of growth.
This was one of the things that really interested me when you take math and compare it to reading. Before, I think I would have probably predicted that reading would have been affected more, but what we really are seeing statewide is that math took the biggest slide.
I concur.
Wow.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you.
I think all this is really emphasizing, especially in the younger grades, 6 and younger, the emphasis of face-to-face. Some things just will not translate. They can't learn it on their own.
Absolutely.
Clearly.
Yes, ma'am.
Math is one.
This particular.
That's a good point.
It is a good
Mrs.
point.
Knapp.
Yes.
And we may even owe some of that to parents. I can see that it's probably, I don't want to say easier, but parents to sit down and read with a child, it's a little different than sitting down and doing
Have you
math.
seen this new math? I can't figure out how to do
Well, in the
it.
new
Just the way we
math,
teach
don't even
math
get me
is
started on
different.
the new math.
Absolutely. On this particular slide, we're looking at grades 6, 7, and 8th grade mathematics. You do see, however, on 6th and 7th grade, the growth spanning the 3 years. And then 8th grade math, you see, look at that, exceeded the state actually in 2021.
Nice.
Absolutely. Again, our cohort of students. So if you'll bear with me and let me read some percentages to you because I think they're very impressive. 6th graders in 2017 as 7th graders in 2018 grew from 53 to 64%. 7th in 2017 as 8th graders in 2018 from 53 to 63. And then 7th graders in 2018 as 8th graders in 2021 grew from 64 to 67. So again, there are lots of golden nuggets as we do a deep dive into this data dig this evening.
One of the interesting observations I'm having is we're kind of going through this, and I know we haven't gotten to the upper grade levels yet, but is the impact on the younger grades. I mean, if you look at this consistently, 7th and 8th grade did better in this, if you want to call it virtual, hybrid world that we had this year. So I'll be curious if that holds true for our high school students, but it really draws a very strong picture of how much our younger students
suffered as a result of possibly, yes, staying at home and yes. So we're going to switch to fourth and 7th grade writing as well as 5th grade science. So we have there a slight increase, 4th grade writing. From 7th grade writing growth, there is growth in 2017 to 2019. So again, that upwards increase. 5th grade science, 11% growth from comparing 2017 to 2018. This particular slide looks at 8th grade science, 8th grade social studies, and 8th grade algebra. And of course, you can't help but notice right there, 8th grade algebra at 100%, 100%, 99, and 99%. So well done, 8th grade algebra teachers, even exceeding the state and all levels there. And we also see a great increase in 8th grade science increases from 2017 to 2019. So again, we're trending upwards. Also in social studies. All right, now we're going to transition from NISD to the campus slides. So first up is BQJ. So on this particular slide, we have third, fourth, and fifth grade reading. And you'll notice that it's kind of up and down, but we have growth in third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade reading increases 2017 to 2018. But then we do see a slight decrease in 2019 to 2021.
Can I say something here, Dr. Hill?
Yes, sir.
Just to make sure that our community and our public know, you're going to see the numbers here that communicate to the state level. One thing that's very important when you see BQJ on this page, the state does not compare BQJ to schools in Nacogdoches, okay? The state does not even compare it to the state level. What they do is they have 40 schools across the state of Texas that have the same number of students, the percentages in that same range, percentage of disadvantage, English learners, mobility rate, all of the population that's out there. So if you truly want to understand BQJ as to how BQJ performed, and this will be true with every campus that you'll hear Dr. Hill speak to us about, then you need to look at BQJ and travel to Aldine and go look at two of their schools in Aldine. Two of their schools look like BQJ: Amarillo, Brownsville, Castleberry, Cleveland, Fort Worth, Galena Park, Homestead. Houston has 5, Mesquite ISD, Northeast, Far San Juan, Sheldon, Spring, Tyler, Waco, Westlaco. So if you truly want to understand what BQJ is doing, then you look at your comparable groups, you look at schools that the state is comparing them to, which is 40 schools. And there's how you look your range and see how they compare based on how they get on their performance. So when you see a campus, we want to take it and say, well, how is this school compared to this school on the other side of town? The state doesn't do that. We do that because we're in the community. But we want to make sure that we look at a school and we look at the comparable groups and find out, well, how do they rank how do they perform within their group of schools that's out there? Just want to make sure we put that out there as we continue to explore the cohorts of our campuses and how our schools are doing based on their cohort group that they have. Thank you, Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. We'll go ahead and move forward and discuss math. You'll see that there is growth in third, fourth, and fifth grade math increase in 2017 to 2018. We do see some decreases in 2019 to 2021. However, when you look at our growth of our cohorts, the third graders in 2017 were at 64%. When they were fourth graders in 2018, they grew to 77. Fourth graders in 2018 scored 77%. But when they went on to fifth grade in 2019, they were at 90%. The last slide for BQJ looks at fifth grade science and fourth grade writing. We'll see growth, fifth grade science and fourth grade writing increase between 2017 and 2018, but we do see some decreases in 2019 to 2021. Now moving on to Carpenter. Third grade reading increased 10%, 10 percentage points of 2017 to 2018, but then there was a slight decrease of 9% from 2018 to 2021. Again, when we're looking at some of our cohorts, we see that our fourth graders in 2017, then when they were fifth graders in 2018, increased from 38 to 50. Our fourth graders in 2018 to fifth graders in 2019 grew from 28% to 55%.
Something that I thought was interesting about looking, and I want to also add that I love this layout. It just makes things so clearly. And one thing I thought was interesting is you can see clearly as you track third grade, a third grade group to when they're in fourth grade, and then when they get to fifth grade. And we see a really good progression of growth. And I think that is helping us to see clearly how laying a foundation is being built upon. And then suddenly we see a big payoff.
Another great point, especially from you being at the high school for so long. You know, I know it was always so frustrating when you implement something at the lower levels and you had to wait so long
Yeah.
for you to reap the
Right.
benefits. So yes, ma'am, the early foundation is fundamental. Absolutely. In looking at the math results of third, fourth, and fifth grade, we'll see minimum changes in third grade math, with the exception of 2019, where it was a decrease. Again, Ms. App, to your point, when we're looking at fourth graders in 2018, scored 40%. They were at 62% as fifth graders. If we look at fifth grade science and fourth grade writing results, we do see a little bit of a trending decline in fifth grade science by about 24 percentage points, and also in fourth grade writing between 2017 and the current year. So unfortunately, that's not the trend that we would like to see. But we know where we are and we know what work we need to do. As we move on to Fredonia, again, going back to reading, looking at the 3 grade levels. We see that third grade reading in 2017 was at 41%. But then as they went on to be fourth graders in 2018, they increased their overall passing percentage to 52%. As we're looking at our 3 grade levels for mathematics at Fredonia, again, really focusing on the growth of our cohorts of students. Fourth grade math students in 2017 were at 41%. Then when they went on to be fifth graders in 2018, they grew to 72%. Also, the fourth graders in 2019 were at 52%. But then when they went on to fifth grade, even in spring of 2021, went from 52% to 66%.
Could I add something here too about the fourth grade writing? Some parents get really upset that those scores are so low. First of all, it's the first year that they're actually tested on it. And you're thinking, well, you know, why is the writing so hard that they're doing so poorly? And I would say, think back to when you in high school maybe had to learn a second language. And you know that the reading of it was picked up pretty quickly. And then maybe the hearing, the hardest came when you had to speak it and write it, where you were having to produce your thoughts. And they're learning, these students are learning the language of literacy when you think about it. And so they're having to learn to read, and it takes these 4 years before they're ready to then speak it or create it. And that's very hard. I think we just take it for granted because we're adults, and of course we can write. Especially when we look at what the test is and it's some little story, or, you know, how to make a peanut butter sandwich or something, thinking, why are you having trouble? It's because this is a new language for them, the language of literacy. And so when we look then at 7th grade writing and see the improvement, we should be encouraged, not be discouraged over these low scores.
And Ms. Apt, again, another plug for our Fontes of Pinel, sitting in the teacher training this week, and then our administrator training that we had last week, and watching some of the instructional videos that come along as digital versions. And so we were able to watch what a interactive reading lesson should look like. And then they were writing about what they were reading. And so to your point is the modeling of the teacher asking the questions, the students responding, even dialoguing with them, you know, with their elbow mates, if you will, but then even helping the teacher write. So it's, yes.
It is a process.
Yes, we're very, very excited. So as we move on to science and again, 4th grade writing for Fredonia. And if you'll take note in fifth grade science on this particular slide at the last, the 21 year to the state, you'll see that we were super close in fifth grade science. We'll move on to NETI. Again, this particular slide shows our 3 grade levels for reading. You will note that third grade reading exceeded the state in both 2017 and 2018. You do see some increases at fourth grade from 2017 to 2018, and then fifth grade exceeded the state in 2017. When we look at our 3 grade levels of math at NETI, we see that third grade math exceeded the state in 2017, 2018, and 19. Fourth grade math exceeded the state in 2017, 2018, and then fifth grade exceeded the state in 2017 and 2018. Fifth grade science and fourth grade writing. Fifth grade science exceeded the state in 2017, but you do unfortunately see some significant decreases in 2018 to the current year.
Wow, look at that fourth grade writing.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. And you'll see that they even exceeded the state in, I believe it was both in 2018 and in 21. Reggae reading. We do see some decreases in 21 for both fourth and fifth grade. You also note that there is kind of some little change from year to year. So that's something we take note of. If we're looking at our cohorts, the biggest increase was fourth graders in 2018 at 69 percentage points to 80% as fifth graders in 2019. When you look at mathematics for Reggae, you do see kind of some similar results that we saw in the previous slide. There were some decreases in 2021. Fifth grade, however, did exceed the state in 2017 and 2018. And then one highlight from a cohort of students is the fourth graders in 2018 were at 61%, but then as fifth graders in 2019, they grew to 80% passing. Regarding science and writing, fifth grade science exceeded the state in 2017 and 2018. But then we fell below the state in 2021. In fourth grade writing, there was little change except in 2021, we had 32% compared to the state at 53%. So I believe, yeah, this is our last elementary TJR. Reading. Third grade reading exceeded the state in both 2018 and 2021. Fourth grade reading exceeded the state also at those same years, 2018 and 2021. And then fifth grade reading exceeded the state in 2021. And you do note that there is cohort to cohort growth when we're looking at those percentages as well. As we look at TJR math, again, we've got some exceeding of the state levels in third grade math in 2019 and 21, fourth grade math in 2019, fifth grade math in 2018 and 21. Then when we look at science and writing, fifth grade science exceeded the state in 2018 and 2019, and then fourth grade writing exceeded in 2021.
Hats off, Ms. Harshbarger. Well, you and your team, you and your team. I know it's not, I know it's not where you're not going to be satisfied until, you know, they're there, but that's impressive.
As we move on to Mike Moses, on this particular slide, you're going to see sixth, seventh, and eighth grade reading, but then you're also going to see seventh grade writing. So sixth grade reading growth from 2017 to 2019 with a slight decrease in 21 by about 4 percentage points. However, seventh grade reading did exceed the state in 2021. Continuing with our thoughts about cohorts, when we're looking at sixth graders in 2017 to seventh graders in 2018, they increased their overall passing percentage from 55 to 68%. And then from the 2017 seventh graders to eighth graders in 2018, increased from 58 to 79. On the next slide, we're looking specifically at mathematics in both sixth and seventh and eighth grade, but then we also at the end have eighth grade algebra. Please note that grades 6 through 8 math exceeded the state in 2021. So 6th, 7th, and 8th. They also in grades 6th and 7th exceeded the state in 2019. And I'm not dismissing 8th grade. I know we've already talked about it, but well done on 8th grade math, Mike Moses.
Mr. Autry here?
Yes, he is right there.
Oh, he's hiding over there. Yeah, well done, sir. Well done. I understand.
When we're looking at 8th grade science and 8th grade social studies, you see again that we've got an exceeding of the state in 2021. Moving to McMichael, this particular slide again has the 3 grade levels of reading and then the 1 grade level of writing. When we're looking at cohort to cohort, our 2017 sixth graders were at 46% passing, but then when they grew to be 7th graders in 2018, they increased from 46 to 59. Our 7th graders in 2017 were at 57% overall passing. They grew to 80% as 8th graders in 2018. Our 7th graders in 2018 had an overall passing percentage of 59%. As 8th graders in 2019, that increased to 71 percentage points. You will also note that in 7th grade reading, there was growth from 2017 to 2019. When we're looking at math and algebra 1 for McMichael, you do see an upward trend for grades 6th and 7th math from 2017 to 2019. Couple of cohorts of significance. 6th graders in 2017, overall passing percentage is 51%, but then as 7th graders in 2018 increased 10 percentage points to 61. When we look at science and social studies for the 8th grade, there's slight trending growth from 2017 to 2019 in both science and social studies.
I'd like to call a timeout so our minds can breathe. Thank you out there, everybody who's with us, either here or hopefully you're not getting another snack out there in the virtual
I'm on
land.
slide 43. I have to go to 54, so hang with me. Hang with me. We're almost there.
What I think what we see here is reverse Jenga. We see teachers that are building from the beginning to the end, and little things get knocked out here and there. And then the next teacher says, well, I'll fix that. And so all these teachers are working together and building these masterpieces we call Nacogdoches Dragons. And it's not just the teachers, it's everybody that works in this district. Every support person, every administrator, every janitor. Boy, I tell you, the janitors get so many hugs over Carpenter. It's just incredible how the kids love those janitors and they love everybody else. So thank you for sharing this with us, and thank you for the small victories that happened every day in the places we call NAC-ID classrooms with every student.
Thank you, Dr. Groman. We'll transition to the high school. On this particular slide, you see English 1, English 2, and U.S. history, specifically are 3 of our 5 EOCs, end of course STAR exams at the high school. You will note little change from English 1 to English 2 from year to year. US history has little change year to year, but tracking very closely with the state average. When we look at Algebra 1 and biology at the high school, there's little change in Algebra 1 from year to year, but biology is definitely trending. We have some increases and tracked very closely with the state in both 2019 and 2021. As we move to Malcolm Rector, on this particular slide, again, we have English 1, English 2, and US history. We do see higher performance for students in US history as compared to the other subjects. On this next slide, we're looking specifically at Algebra 1 and biology. You do see an upward trend in both subject areas of algebra and biology from 2017 to 2018, but then fell in 2019 and then in 2021. We will transition a little bit, just to a little different format, little different view. I'm going to read this to you because I don't want to, it's kind of important. You can go ahead and project, go to the next slide. But when we're looking at this, we're comparing of course, our STAR results. But on this particular slide, we've been looking at the approaches performance category. This shows us the approaches, the meets, and the masters. We often like to look at this because sometimes when our approaches declines, that's because there could be an increase in a meets or a masters. So it's very important to not lose sight of this as well. So you'll see that math resulted in the greatest percentage differences comparing 2019 to 21 as compared to reading. And then we specifically highlighted some areas here because those are definite areas of strength for us. For example, 7th grade math, where we had the same percentage passing at the meets for state in meets and masters. The same for 8th grade math at approaches, meets, and masters. 8th grade science, we exceeded the state at approaches, meets, and masters. And then in 8th grade social studies, we were the same as the state.
I keep questioning that I'm reading this one correctly. Does this mean the meets means that they're on grade level, right?
Yes.
Okay. I was really shocked that across the state, less than half are on grade level. We're not doing too badly. I mean, there's something going on with education, I think. I don't know. That was just a real shocker to me.
Do you have anything to add, Dr. Corley, to that? No? Okay. Just want to make sure Dr. Corley didn't want to have anything to add. So what does all this data mean to us? And so this next slide just talks to us about the trend areas that we saw, specifically the skills, the area of focus for this next school year. I won't read those to you, but again, it's just very, very important for us to not lose sight of our areas of deficiencies. Again, it goes to our presentation that we presented last month regarding the Resilient Support School Program. That presentation, by the way, has been posted to the NISD website under the required postings, and then there is a curriculum tab. But in there, we noted the just-in-time tutorials. And so intervention times. So just to reiterate, we do have intervention block of time or acceleration time built into every master schedule. While the state says we do need to keep our ratio of 1 to 3 or 3 to 1, 3 students to 1 teacher, they being the state, did release a waiver that we could send home permission slips to parents regarding exceeding that threshold, if you will. And so we're going to do our very best to keep our elementary groups at a 5 to 1, our middle schools at an 8 to 1, and then high schools anywhere from 10 to 15 to 1. So while we have a set number of teachers, we did recently apply for the T-class application. And please don't ask me what that stands for right now because I will draw a blank. But within there, it talks about tutoring services. So TEA is putting out a list of certified or vetted tutors that could be either virtual and or face-to-face, and they're not necessarily Texas teachers. They could be certified in other states. So while we will use some staff, there will be other opportunities for either retired teachers and or these tutoring services vetted by TEA that we will utilize throughout this next school year.
I was curious because I know when this House bill came out and it called for the 3-to-1, which I totally understand because it's going to take a lot of intense intervention to catch students back up. Is that an area where we could partner with SFA as well with their
Yes.
Teaching program there?
Yes, it does say in one of the FAQs that you can
Okay.
use students.
Okay.
So yes, ma'am. I don't know that at this juncture we've reached out to them, but yes, ma'am, it is definitely on our list of things to reach out to. Yes, ma'am.
One of the things that's pretty exciting about that dynamic is that they don't want you using the same teacher of record. And we want to typically lean on the fact that we don't want to exhaust the teacher that's working. But I choose to look at it differently. If a teacher's had a child in the classroom and taught that child, you get to hear it differently from a different approach from a different individual. And sometimes the teachers had that child all year long and it just doesn't reach that one student, but continuing to meet that instructional need and providing a support through someone else can also trigger that with the student.
I've thought about that too, and I kind of like that approach, and I like the idea of supplementing through supplemental, I'm going to call them instructors for lack of a better word there, the teacher's efforts, because I think you said it earlier, our teachers, they put in a long day.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and if we can have some fresh and enthusiastic and a different perspective, I'm intrigued by this. I'm kind of looking forward to what it's going to look like as it gets rolled out.
And pointing at that camera up there, if there's any retired teachers that are out there, the experience that they left the field, the state has also lifted a lot of the restrictions that allowed them from not coming in. So if you're retired, we want you. It's like the old army. So use them as well. So.
On these next few slides, we're going to shift the focus from the STAR, even though it is related to STAR, of course, these are our student outcome goals. And so when we talked to you about these in January, you saw a graph very similar to this, or a chart with, of course, the information not completed, but you'll see that we had the baseline data, the original goal, the actual results, and then possibly tweaking the goal based on where we fell. And so I'll just pause for a minute and see if you have any particular questions. This happens to be the third grade reading.
I think I said this last year, and as long as I'm on this board, you're going to have to hear it every year.
Okay.
I understand the value of having these goals, and they are encouraging. But I just want to assure parents, I guarantee there is not a classroom teacher that sits there and looks out at her class or his class and says, okay, I just have to get 35% of them to do it. It is 100%.
Yes, ma'am.
100% growth and 100%
absolutely
mastery. It really is.
Yes, ma'am. We absolutely agree. I think I agree with you.
I'm not saying you
100%.
disagree. I just want to assure the parents, looking this and go, yeah. No. Teachers are so excited about this year. They are ready to get going.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for those comments, Ms. Abt. And now on this particular slide, you'll see the third grade math. And then our last student goal is for the college career military readiness. So I will pause and see if there are any additional questions you might have.
Well, I'd just like to say, you guys did a lot of work. My hat's off to you all, and this makes me so much more excited about this year, even though the things that we're going through, because I know that we have some dedicated teachers that are with our district, and we need to get more dedicated teachers because I think together we're going to be able to really be successful at the end of the year, regardless of what obstacles might face us. And so, again, I just want to thank you and your staff for really putting some good information for us to go back and look at it. I think I'll be looking at this quite a bit. I want to really understand it a lot better. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to share the data.
And I also want to thank you for some changes that your department is doing in the campus and stuff. For instance, the streamlining of reading curriculum. I think hopefully we're going to see some really good results in the coming year as a result. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I know it took a lot of work to get this report put together with those comparative years and everything and the layout. You guys hit it out of the park with the presentation and the way the data was presented.
Well, thank you so much. It was definitely a team effort. So thank you very much.
I would just like to say, Dr. Hill, I mean, like she said, I mean, seeing it in this view, it really shows how much improvement those kids were getting every year. And it was hard to see when you just lined them up. And I also like that we're comparing each school to somebody like them instead of internally, almost competing with, we don't have the same, I speak like patients because that's what I do, students. So that is to see that. And then looking at those charts, I mean, coming into COVID, we were rocking through, and not saying that we didn't do a great job, because I can't tell you people I heard from, I've got to do this virtual lesson, I'm doing this, and this kid's calling me at 10 o'clock in the evening. And, just that constant, our teachers were just around the clock. And gosh, I can't thank you guys enough for what, I don't have a child currently at NISD. They finally all graduated. And, but I know if I did, I would be so excited to see what all was going on for our kids.
Yes, ma'am.
And I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Dr. Hill, I always question. However, thank you for your presentation, and it's much better than I thought. Thank you.
We aim to please. Thank you.
All right, that'll bring us.
Can I add something to that? Just a side note, just to make sure we know. I want to make sure this trajectory, I came in a year and a half ago. If you look at the data was already in that direction. And what we need to make sure we realize is we know what story we're telling. Because when we go out to the community and they're saying, we got to work on improving our schools, we got to do better in our schools. And I want you to know that the leaders in this district, I have only been here a year and a half. This trajectory was already in that direction. We just need to be able to tell the story the right way. And when you see it and you're able to look at a specific campus and see the growth that's going across on that campus, it tells a marvelous story. And that's the part that we want to celebrate, is every one of the principals that are in this building have worked tremendously hard to staff their buildings. And I will tell you, the last time we did a curriculum audit, can you tell me the last time we did a curriculum audit? Do you know when we did one? Here? Never? So the board adopted us to do a curriculum audit. So we saw some good scores, but we still see an opportunity to get better. And when we finish the audit, it's going to get us much better information. This board also recognizing the efforts of the veteran teachers that we have to come back to Nacogdoches. These scores are in part a lot of our teachers that did not retire. They came back to Nacogdoches. And this board collectively recognized every one of you and said, you are worth every penny of that investment. To let you know, thank you so much for coming back to Nacogdoches. And you saw that in a convocation. And on behalf of the staff to this board, I want to make sure that you hear their appreciation to you for seeing them for the work they're doing every single day. And I want to make sure the naysayers that are out there saying, well, you just put the numbers. And you're, no, you go in and look at those numbers and you can see trajectories from 17 all the way to 21. They were on the away, and then 20 happened. I've got principals out there that got upset that we didn't have data in 20. I know they got upset because they worked so hard and they knew they were going to get the data. So I know that they're working hard, and I'm excited about what the work they're going to do this next school year. And I'm so excited about our new staff that's going to start off on Monday. But I did not want to say
My wife sent me to Kroger to pick up one of those pre-done chickens. On my way there, of course, I took my tie off, and if you've known me for more than 6 months, you know I always pretty much dress the same. I wear a blue shirt, some type of a blue tie, and some type of slacks. Going into Kroger, I took my tie off, making me look, I suppose, like one of the managers, because as I was making my way down, a woman pulls me to the side to make a complaint. She goes, do you work here? And before I can say, no, ma'am, I do not, she proceeds to say, that gentleman over there was so rude to me. And I said, oh my gosh, what happened? 15 minutes later, I found out that Dave had not escorted her to aisle 6 to find her coffee. So being the good Samaritan that I am, I walked over, helped her find her coffee, and sent her along her way. So if the education thing does not work out for me, I'm looking at sales rep or customer service for Kroger. There it is. So good evening, President Fitch, board members, and Superintendent Trujillo. This is my 4th time being able to present for this board about summer learning. It is one of my favorite times of the year. We like to talk about filling our buckets up, and there's a crazy cohort of teachers that love to teach into the summer because we get to see just, I loved it because there was a kid there that I've seen for 4 years, and I was like, man, we got a summer school, you must love it because I have seen you every year. So that being said, I'm supposed to have a clicker. Oh, Miss Grady has my clicker. So without further ado, I'd like to present to you some of the great things that we did this summer because, as you know, learning does not stop in May. So this is kind of a small general summary of what we offered. We have EIE, which is our local policy that carries on K through 8th grade. We had our newcomers program, our migrant program. We had our ESL bilingual program, which is a required service. We had extended year service. And of course, NHS offered EOC remediation, credit recovery, and government EOC original credits. Here you see that our facilitator for K through 2nd grade was Emily Drury. This is her 2nd year in that role. We had an average daily attendance of 112 students. I served as the facilitator for 3 through 5th grade. Where we had an average daily attendance of 134. At this point, the only area I have not been to is the high school. And then, of course, we had our bilingual summer learning, which is brought to us by Joyce Garcia, where they had an average daily attendance of 120. One of the things that this does not tell you is all of the auxiliary services that are going on, and I would be remiss if I did not thank my friends at the facility and maintenance with Ralph, Ms. Thacker, who helped us make sure those kids got fed, Mr. Lampkin, who made sure those kids got to school on time, and the numerous of other individuals I am not naming by name, but that helped make sure these kids felt loved and a successful summer. When we looked at elementary in particular, we wanted to look at our 3rd through 5th grade assessment. So we have a number of cohorts. For clarification, a cohort is just a class. So we had 4 classrooms of 3rd graders. These are pre-assessment and post-assessment averages. I give you the differences there. These teachers were able to utilize STEM Scopes, which is a program that we'll be implementing in our schools this year. So they got a quick professional development on it because summer school is much like a mobile Army hospital unit where you bug in and bug out pretty quickly. While we were there, you can see across the board, we in fact made gains. And so if you think back to the previous presentation where we were worried about math, these are some of those students. And so through this additional number of minutes of instruction, which actually came out to 20 days, we were able to make a difference. The next slide, of course, is our reading pre and post assessments. It's the same students. They were able to get enrichment both in reading and in math. We also offered this year for the first time, and I have to thank my friends in fine arts, we offered art enrichment. which actually turned out to be an amazing opportunity for our students to not only do some decompressing, but it was actually quite fun. I learned about pointism this year, so that's fascinating. It enriched myself. When we get into our secondary summer learning program, we had our 6th through 8th grade was managed by Andy Howe. We had an average daily attendance of 125. And Ms. Fuentes worked for our high school program where we had an average daily attendance of 145. The numbers of initial credits acquired, we had government and economics. We had initial credits of 40 government credits earned and 30 economics credits. I could go through all of these with the speed of probably an auctioneer, but I'm going to let y'all go ahead and read those on your own. But for the sake of time and in reading my crowd, I'm going to go ahead and move on. We have the same thing here, but what I want you to draw your attention to is we have numerous courses we are able to offer into the summer because Miss Ivy and her counselors, along with the NHS team, wanted to make sure students had every opportunity to be successful. Number of credits earned through initial credit were 69, and the credit recovery were 427 for a total of 496 credits awarded over the summer, which is
That was
huge.
a busy summer, yeah.
It was. It was. In fact, I almost want to make the crowd give us a round of applause for that.
Yeah.
So our STAR EOC results, you of course had the algebra, biology, English 1, English 2, US history. You see the total number of students enrolled, the number of students that passed, it gives you a percentage. I do want to draw attention to the fact that this is typically a full year course that is condensed down, oh Lord, about to hit something, condensed down to 20 days. So no amount of gains is too small. And what I can't show you here is the growth that each individual student made. But we are very much so appreciative of those teachers and very much so proud of those students. So just a average children served would have been 635 a day. So like I said, we keep learning on into the summer. Any questions?
I'd like to say thank you to our professional Dragon teachers who sacrificed and put their passion to work in the heat. And it really makes a difference for these students. They need it. And we're grateful for all the people that we're supporting that you mentioned, because no one can just go into a classroom without there being air conditioning and food and all the other, and a little oxygen and everything else you need. And thank you for running it.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. That's a wonderful, wonderful report, Mr. Zemanek. All right. I will entertain a motion.
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Mrs. Winslow, a second by Reverend Irvin. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen.